So the first speaker will be VK Kumar and Raj Tadani, who's a director at Hokey Pokey. The paper is co-authored with Vikram Bhaskaran, Rohan Mirchandani, and Milip Shah. Milip Shah is the co-founder and also a director at Hokey Pokey. And the title is Creating a Measurable Social Media Marketing Strategy for Hokey Pokey, Increasing the Value and ROI of Intangibles and Tangibles. So you guys have the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to try and keep you awake through this presentation. My name is Raj Tadani. I'm the director of the board of the holding company that owns Hokey Pokey, based out of the United States. All the investors are actually in the United States, and Hokey Pokey is in India, of course. The CEO of Hokey Pokey in India reports into me, and I remotely manage that from the United States. So, who's Hokey Pokey? Hokey Pokey is a chain of ice cream parlors that provides a unique experience to our customers, something different for India. We offer custom ice cream creations, gourmet offerings, and really a cool place to hang out. That was the objective, was to create a cool place to hang out for the customers there. So we provide what we call a super premium ice cream, which has a better content mix than other ice creams. And we offer a really wide range of mix-ins. Mix-ins are things like almonds, peanuts, etc., that go into these ice creams. So essentially, people can come in and order an ice cream, and our staff will create that for them, a creation of their own choice. So our audience is primarily based on 16 to 25-year-old with families and groups visiting us at night. The volume.
That's been going around. It's a desert lounge that's
Get the Hokey Pokey.
fun. It's the perfect place for everyone. Hokey Pokey creation, super cool for sure. Ice cream cups and cones like you've never had before. You can make your own mix, frozen, stone, and it's fixed. And that's what it's all about.
So if that didn't make you feel like eating ice cream, right? There's a good menu and a good song. So the company was established in 2008, about a little over 3 years ago in India, with our first parlors coming up in Mumbai. We have a total of 19 outlets. We have 12 in Mumbai, and we've got 3 in Pune, a couple in Ahmedabad, Surat, and now our latest entree into Bangalore in southern India. So a total of 19 outlets in India. So why, you ask, why this social media campaign? We had a challenge. We were faced with a limited marketing budget, and we approached Dr. Kumar with the, sorry about that, I just meant to mention, we have a plan to extend to 150 outlets in the next 3 years. That's our future growth plan there. So when we established our marketing strategy, we approached Dr. Kumar, and working with limited marketing resources, we asked for his assistance in finding a way to use social media. We wanted to capitalize on social media marketing. We wanted to acquire and retain profitable customers. We wanted to maintain that relationship with our customers, and to find ways to increase our ROI was another key objective of ours. So social media, we thought, would be really useful in creating a buzz. We needed our brand to have a buzz in India, and this was a way to move into that market and capitalize using social media, and that was the intention. Now, the program has been a super success. We've really benefited from it greatly, and Dr. Kumar will now provide us with more details on the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. It was a great privilege to work on the project with Hokey Pokey on this social media campaign. If you look at the power of word of mouth, which is essential for the social media campaign, Jeff Bezos mentioned that if you tell somebody something, it'll be heard by 6 people, but in the physical world. But in the internet world, it can go up to 6,000. So it's really critical for us to understand that there is power in this word of mouth. And the 2 popular social media platforms, one is the Facebook, and another is the Twitter. If you look at the Facebook, look at 53.5 billion minutes are spent on Facebook, and as of May 2011. Powerful. More than 50% of active users log on to Facebook in any given day. And then if you look at average user has got 130 friends. So even if you say something to them, it can quickly spread to 130 people. And then more than 800 million active users. That is powerful. Now it's touching 1 billion, and you can imagine Facebook going public. So if you compare that with Twitter, phenomenal here. Again, you have more than 400 million unique monthly visitors. Very nice there. Then more than 100 million are globally active. I mean, that is also powerful worldwide. And then if you look at how many new accounts are being created every day, 450,000 or 500,000 new accounts are also being created. So if this is not powerful enough, look at the number of tweets per day. It's about 230 million tweets per day. And the critical message here is that 75% of the users are likely to buy the brand that they follow. So if you can have some magic going in this media, you're great. And if you look at what the industry has to say, look at, we are quoting Seth Foreman, Frank, as well as David across different companies. And we have highlighted in red that you can see the key phrases: social listening, social conversation, social listening perspective. These are the places where we want to be as opposed to the traditional places, because here it is powerful, it's a community, there is mobility there. Therefore, this is something that one should be able to capitalize on this. So the question here is how we are going to tap the social media to market an organization. It's a big challenge because the network is vast, a lot of information. So how do we structure this? So the approach we want to take in today's presentation is that we will present to you a conceptual framework first and define all the terms, and then show you how we applied to Hokey Pokey. So if you look at the conceptual framework, where does the data come from? So we have actually 3 categories of data: user data, or user network data, we call it, user message data, and global message data. What are they? Like if you take user network data, they are something like whether there is a relationship existing between a pair of users, the rate at which significant changes are occurring, that is another example, or the direction of such a tie, like I follow you, you follow somebody else. Is there a symmetric or asymmetric directional connection? If you look at the user message data, we are looking at the tenure, how long they have been posting these messages, how many messages they are posting, as well as the topics that they discuss. And the global message data focuses on the context of the stickiness index, meaning, I'm going to define that in a second. What that says is that, are you talking about movies or ice cream or education or all of these topics? So that gives rise to a measure. The first measure that we do here, or compute here, is stickiness index, which is defined as the degree to which a user or an instance of word of mouth is specific to each category of topics. What does this mean? All this says is that, are you talking about just ice cream in the social media? If yes, your stickiness index is 1. If you're not talking about ice cream at all, with respect to ice cream analysis, it's 0. So this is the first metric. And then if you look at what we do with this data, we come up with a model. The model is basically capturing the spread of word of mouth. And it's asking 3 questions here. Is there a tie that exists between me and you? The first one. And if there is a tie, when I send a message, are you seeing that message? That's the second. And then having seen the message, are you forwarding it to your network of friends? That's the third one. So we have these 3 models, and we predict this. And the outcome of using these 3 models is our second metric that we define in the study, which is customer influence effect, CIE, which is defined as the net spread of an instance of word of mouth attributable to an individual user. So I'm first conceptually defining it, then I'm going to show you how we compute it, and then what are the drivers behind it. So if we take the CIE, and we have this measure in the network, then we combine that with organizational data, which is nothing but influenceability ratio alpha, says that the degree to which this word of mouth has been responsible for a customer making a purchase. And then customers' contribution margin comes from Hokey Pokey. How do we get that? We connect our software to their point of sales in all the outlets, so therefore we are able to pretty much track who is going and ordering what ice cream based on the conversation with the hashtag that is followed through. So combining CIE and this organizational data, we are able to compute something called customer influencer value. And this is defined as the monetary gain or loss realized by a firm through a customer's positive or negative word of mouth. So all these things go into a customer making his or her own purchases is CLV, which we are all quite familiar with. The total customer value is given like this. Now to expand on this modeling aspect of it, spread of word of mouth, if you look at it, there is a host and a receiver, which I said me and you. And then if you look at, is there a tie between you and me? How do we model that? There is an equation there. That's the first model. Probability that there is a tie that exists between you and me. What are the variables that predict that? One of the variables is reciprocity, meaning if I follow you, there is a high likelihood you'll follow me. Another variable is triangulation transitivity, that I follow you, you follow somebody else. There is a high likelihood that I will be following that somebody else. So like this, we have set of variables to predict that. Then given that there is a tie existing between two individuals, does the receiver see the word of mouth instance? How do we model that? The probability that the receiver is seeing a message is given as a choice model, as a function of the exposure function. It's 1 over 1 plus e to the power minus v, which is an exposure function. What that says is every 5 seconds on a sliding window, it keeps saying that, are you tweeting back or are you seeing the message? In real time, it is capturing that information. And then, having seen the message, now the question is the receiver influenced by the word of mouth? And yes, the receiver is influenced. Then there are two outcomes possible. The first outcome is whether this translates into a purchase. And if it does, then it contributes to something called CIV, which we defined earlier, that how much is the monetary gain due to the spread of a message. It can also contribute to saying that does the receiver spread the word of mouth further? Since I've received it, now I'm spreading it further. Yes. And we model that. That's the third model, which is a survival model there. That is, at any given time, the probability that a receiver is spreading this message further is a function of some baseline hazard function, and then as a function of a few other attributes there. So given this, yes, the receiver does spread the word of mouth. It contributes to the customer influence effect. So what we have done in the study so far is to, first of all, introduce to you a conceptual framework, what kind of data, what kind of model we build, and what are the metrics clear. So the contribution that we are making here into the literature, into the academic, and to the practice of marketing science is that you can have this data. With the right software that you write, you can process that, and then come up with these metrics to manage. Once this receiver spreads the message further, it becomes the new host. Therefore, this process continues. So how does it work? What does the CIE mean? Let's look at a network here. You have Alexa, Bob, Carol, and a few others. Our interest is in finding what is the CIE of Alexa. So to do that, how much influence Alexa has got? Alexa is basically talking to Bob and Carol, as you can see from this network. So the CIE, customer influence effect of Alexa, is calculated in our study as follows. The number of conversations or relevant conversations posted by Alexa. Then second factor is how much influence Alexa has got on Bob. And that is measured by something called Hubble's influence. Hubble developed this metric in 1965. So we use that Hubble's influence and then multiply by the CIE of Bob. What is the CIE of Bob? CIE of Bob is nothing but how much is the influence Bob has got on David and Frank and Carol. Like that it goes on. But to give you a flavor for how Hubble's influence is computed, suppose all of you most probably are married here. You speak to your spouse. Spouse never listens. So your influence on your spouse is 0. Hubble would say that. Whereas your spouse talks back to you and you always say yes, 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 then Hubble's influence is 1. So clearly that's the way it is measured, and in formulation it is given as CIE of theta, which is Alexa in this case, and you expand this, you get this formulation. So how do you do this in terms of customer influence value? So let's look at the same network. Alexa is influencing Bob and Carol. And I've given you their purchase contribution or profit contribution here. And if you look at Alexa's CAV is what we want to compute. So Alexa is influencing Bob and Carol. And the formulation is given as how much influence Alexa has got on Bob, how much influence Alexa has got on Carol. And that is given by the Hubble's influence. And so assume in this case that Alexa has got complete influence. So if I have to show you a sample computation, look at CAV of Alexa. And that is a function of CLV of Bob plus half the CLV of Carol. Why half the CLV? Because Carol is influenced by both Alexa and Bob. And I'm just splitting the influences half here, just for sample. But Hubble's influence would tell me whether it's 1 or whether it's 0.5 or 0 or anywhere in the continuum. So now how do I find the CLV of Bob? That is given to you 10, you have computed. CLV of Carol is given 5, so half of that is 2.5. So you got 12.5. See, but how do you find the CIV of Bob and CIV of Carol? Let's take the CIV of Carol first. CIV of Carol is nothing but how much profit Carol is generating from Emily. $25, because Emily is influenced by Carol. How much profit David is giving to Carol? Half of the 20, because other half goes to Bob, because David is influenced by both Bob and Carol. So Carol gets half of 20, which is 10, plus Emily is 25, which is 35. So that is the CIV of Carol, 35. But then half of that goes to Bob, because Bob also influenced Carol. So half of the 35 is 17.5. So if you look at the CAV of Bob, it is 12.5 plus 17.5. And the 12.5 comes from Bob influencing David half, which is half of 20 is 10. And then Bob influencing Carol's CLV, which is 5. Half of that is 2.5. So 12.5 plus 17.5 is 30. So this is how the process works. And if you look at across all these customers in the network, we are able to come up with both CIE and CIV. Now we take this concept and see how do we apply this to Hokey Pokey. And in the implementation phase, we had 2 campaigns. So that I'm going to give you an overview first, what happened at Hokey Pokey, and then take a step back and explain to you how we got there. The first is Creations on the Wall campaign, and second is the Share Your Brownies. So what happened here is nothing but a customer is asked to make his or her own creations as they walk into the ice cream parlor, and then market that to all their friends in the network. And whoever is able to spread farthest gets the highest CIE. Whoever is able to convert into a lot of purchases gets the highest CIV. And they compete with one another in a time frame, which we evaluate every month. We give prizes out, who is the winner. And we did this campaign over a 16-month period. So I'm going to explain to you with a video what really happened in Hokey Pokey. If you look at Hokey Pokey, the customer walks into the store, goes to the parlor, asks the parlor boy, I want to participate in this, fills out a customized creations, and gets the ice cream. This particular customized creations is posted on the wall, which is called the Great Wall of Creations in each of the Hokey Pokey outlets. Another customer goes in, and the parlor boy says, you can go and pick one from the wall, or you can order from the menu. This customer goes, picks one from the wall, gets the ice cream, eats, and then walks back to the wall of poster, and then says, I like it. Then the third customer comes, fills out again something, and then the parlor boy takes that and goes to the wall. But at the time, the wall is full of creations. Now the most popular one is taken out of the wall and then put it into the computer of Hokey Pokey. In other words, the fixed menu item across all parlors gets a hashtag, and now everybody is asked to compete in this game and tweet about this or put in the Facebook the conversation about this particular creation, and it is marketed across the entire network. And that's so all the dollars that keep coming because of this marketing activity is distributed to everybody who participated in the spread of this message using our computational formula CIE and CIV, and they are able to distribute who contributed what in terms of what it is. So, well, this was the campaign followed everywhere. The hard task here was to train the parlor boys and have people selected as the seeds. So how does that happen? So if you look at the study objectives for Hokey Pokey specifically, We look at the first one, how much quantification that we can do of an individual's influence in the social network. We are demonstrating. We have conceptually shown to you, we have defined it, now we are going to actually compute it in a real network. Then, having done that, can we predict this? So you compute CIE and CIV, the two metrics, and now can you predict that? So what are the drivers that you can use to predict this? And then the reason being, today, Dell wants to do this. So at the end, I'll tell you how Dell can use this particular piece of information. So once you have the CIE and CIV and you want to maximize across the network, it contributes to the bottom line of Hokey Pokey, meaning their sales revenue goes up and the profit also goes up. So the time frame of this study is starting with 2009, Jan, till June 2011, we did this. And the process we followed to accomplish this is first market scoping. So while they are in the US, the investors, they wanted to start this in an emerging market. So the focus was India to begin with. And in Mumbai, we looked at the social media connections, the platform, how many people are tweeting and how many Facebook users are there, how many conversations are there. So we study that. And then we look at all the group of individuals and look at their network structure. So we wanted to be careful enough not to focus on a network where if we are all the network and we talk to each other, then that's no good, because we want the message to spread farther. So where are all the open networks there? So we wanted to focus on that and pick set of individuals who have long connections. And then the messaging. Now, what message you can give? We tested 4 types of message. One is personal message. Hey, this is something I did it. Second is a referral type. You should recommend this to your friends. Third one is conversational. Hey, by the way, I tasted this, this is good. Or fourth is generic. In general, ice cream is good. 4 types of messaging we manipulated and found out that the personal and the referral combination works the best in terms of messaging. So we use that messaging. What is the example of a messaging? Which is nothing but saying that I created this personalized creations and I want you to market this, and these are the benefits for you. So that was the personalization, and then the virality spread. And so with sales tracking at the point of sales at Hokey Pokey, as well as in the network that our software tracks, we are able to measure the CIE and the CIV. And the timeline, if you look at it, starts from Jan 2009 to about June 2011, exactly 2.5 years that we did this. And it goes from when we did the marketing research to pre-test phase and so on. So if you look at so we have to first say that the CIE measure really measures what it is supposed to measure. And so we looked at non-observational, meaning before even getting into Hokey Pokey, general conversation we observed, because we have a framework, variables that predict the CIE, and we monitored 825,000 conversations over 1,736 individuals in a 3-month period to first observe what is the actual CIE, and then with our drivers, we predicted that CIE. Similarly, then the next 3 months, what we did was we validated it by looking at the Hokey Pokey customers, who they are talking to, applying the model from the estimation into the validation, say that these 10 seed users we picked are supposed to have like a CIE of like 28 and CIV of 4,500. And so we validated that. And so next, what happened is that with these 2 social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter, we launched this. So what did we actually measure there for this group of customers from Hokey Pokey? First is the degree of spread. I'm just going back to recap our model here. The first step in the model is the number of times the message was forwarded. The depth of influence is the number of connections that the message jumped. And third is the engagement impact, the number of comments and the replies that received for each of those messages. So these are the 3-stage model which contribute to the CIE and the CIV. And if you look at forecasting Hokey Pokey sales revenue, the model we use, so now we saying that we're playing this game. We have recruited all these individuals. They're all in the campaign. Everybody is participating, promoting these creations. We have predicted CIE, CIV. And if you add up all of them, we say that Hokey Pokey should see some growth. Phenomenal growth. But does it actually happen? So we have a model. So ice cream sales is such that it fluctuates every day. So we fit a model on predicting daily sales revenue as a function of what day in a week, holidays or festivities and a lot of other variables. And when we fit the actual and the predicted sales revenue, first, this is even before the campaign. Okay, so here is on the estimation timeline. Because it's a daily model, I'm showing you a symbolic representation of this graph, that how the model fluctuates on a daily basis. So the actual line is red, the predicted revenue is in blue, and if you look at how well the model fits, you have 1.8% as the MAPE, mean absolute percentage error. A phenomenal fit. Does it translate into prediction also? So if you look at this validation, we extend that line with this model for the holdout sample, and we are able to track the path very nicely. A nice time series model really helps us here in terms of, so the sophisticated model played a role in measuring, understanding the drivers of CIE and CIV. Now, for the time series model, for predicting the Hokey Pokey sales revenue, we see a pattern, we fit that pattern. So how do we now classify the impact that our social media campaign marketing strategy has on Hokey Pokey? So first is, as they mentioned, they have a need for a higher ROI. So social media ROI and brand level, customer level metrics, and brand and customer level metrics were measured at the firm level, what people are talking about as Hokey Pokey. Then you have at the customer level, how much influence effect is there among the users, the likers of Hokey Pokey, and the customer influence value. So those are customer level. So combining these two, we have this business impact. Now let's deep dive into each of this, like the social media ROI and the brand and customer level metrics. So if you look at this, the graph here, the green line that you see there actually starts off where the campaign began, and you can see it gradually going up. That was the projected revenue for the campaign based on the model that we have estimated prior to this campaign. And the red line is the actual revenue, which is fortunately for us greater than the projected revenue. So the difference between those two gives us the delta, incremental revenue. Then the campaign cost that you see is the blue line, and that is, what is the campaign cost? It is nothing but training the parlor boys, leasing the software to track the social media conversations, giving out goodies, prizes, all of them contribute to this campaign cost. And if you really assess before the campaign and after the campaign, what happened in terms of each of those metrics, look at the sales revenue growth rate. If it was growing at X%, it went to 1.4, 40% increase in the growth rate. Social media ROI was whatever their number is, because it's a private concern, they're willing to reveal this. It went up by 83%. And then growth in brand awareness, 49% increase in brand awareness. So what do we mean by this brand awareness? When you do a survey like before, a random survey, and then later on, what happens in an increase in awareness? And there are some other brand and customer level metrics, which is number of positive word of mouth instances per week. From 8 before to 276, 34 times increase in the positive word of mouth. In the proportional sale of custom creations, like this is the campaign, create your own and market it. So that went up by 11 times, from 5% of the total sales to 60%. And the number of customers making more than 2 purchases per week went from 36 to 173 on a regular basis. This is on a weekly basis, 3.8 times. And if you look at the brand and customer level metrics, what we did is the number of conversations spoken at 4 time intervals, May 2010 and September 2010 and Jan 2011 and June 2011. And you see the conversations. The one that is being spoken as of June 2011 is the Cookie Delight, Scotch Delight, and Berry Stick, and so on. So what do you use this information for? Basically, you say that this is what is the flavor of the quarter, flavor of the month, that the buzz is being created, so they can easily, as they open more outlets in that city or as they campaign, they can create promotions so more people go and eat this, because that seems to be in the top of mind. And if you look at the CIE and the CIV, what we predicted, and did it pan out in the marketplace also? If you look at the correlation at 2-month period and 15 days period, meaning we measure today and then say in the next 15 days, we say the CIE is this and CIV is this. What is the correlation? 83. And similarly for CIE, you have 2 intervals, 69 and 86. In other words, the predicted influence effect and the predicted influence value, all of them contributed to success. In the end, is this workable across other areas? Localization, transportability, and generalizability. If you talk about Dell is actually using discount coupons in their website to promote each of this, and they can actually look at their users and see, we can use our model, the CIE and CIV can be computed for their users, and then they can target who should receive this coupon so that the spread is further. And how does it work? It has to be a very localized strategy. And where can it work? You have to segment those customers who can have the maximum influence. So once we predicted CIE and CIV, we can profile them based on either their habits or taste or lifestyle or geography. So I thank you for your time. And we want to personally thank Google WPP for selecting this conceptual framework as one of the winners. Thank you, Glenn. And also Maureen here, who's here. And also MSI for funding this study for the field experiment. So the 2 able bodies helped us conduct this study, and we are very thankful to both of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, VK and Raj. The way it will work is that we have 2 members from the committee who will ask 1 or 2 questions each, depending upon the length of the responses. Then we hope to open it up to questions from the floor, a total of about 15 minutes. So I don't know who's going to go first.
Sure, I'll go first. Well, first of all, my compliments to the authors on a very well done paper. Enjoyed reading it very much. And my question relates really to where you go from here. So you focused here on a very specific campaign in one market, and it might be as much for Raj as for VK. Raj, you mentioned some major plans for expansion early in your talk. I'm really curious as to how this approach might enable or assist you in some of those expansion plans.
So as, excuse me, as VK pointed out, we saw 40% of our growth in revenue come from this campaign. So that itself was significant in itself. But we also got a lot of feedback, and we found who our influencers are. We know what creations work and which ones don't. Creations in the sense of, as I described earlier, ice cream with the mix-ins. This helps us identify which products we want to launch in which markets. As we enter new markets, we have plans to go to 150 new parlors. We expect to use this technique to find who the influencers are in those markets, what are their desires and likes and dislikes in advance. So as we frame our product in that market, we use this data and this intelligence for that. That helps us a lot more than just winging it and getting into that market. And
so in advance? In
advance, yes, planning in advance. So it does help us a lot. It certainly gave us a lot of surprising information on creations and which creations work better than others. And that brought to light other benefits in terms of cost control and cost management also.
Very good.
Well, congratulations as well for a very good paper, and you kind of did develop a model that is kind of complex for the application. I have a kind of general question about this social media, right? It sounds like you found like a sweet spot in social media, because usually we consider social media to be quite, let's say, difficult to manage, in the sense that easily activities could maybe backfire or create also negative word of mouth. A colleague of mine usually considers like managing social media to be like playing pinball, while traditional marketing campaigns more like bowling. So I wonder about, did you observe during your kind of period, the campaign actually, that some of your activities also generated negative word of mouth? Because the paper mostly deals with positive effects, which I like, but...
Can I answer?
Yeah, sure.
No, very good point. We had negative word of mouth there also, and it is actually captured in the paper. It's our fault that we did not explain it very well in the stickiness index, so I'll explain it now. So negative word of mouth where something like the parlor is too crowded. It's a long wait time. It's too small. because in Mumbai, if you know, the rental space is so prohibitive, like more expensive than New York City. So that was the set of complaints, but that can still turn away people. Is this captured in the model? Yes, the stickiness index is an index which talks about not only whether you're talking about ice cream, whether it is a positive conversation or a neutral conversation or a negative conversation. If all the conversation about ice cream you speak and it is negative, it'll be like a minus value for stickiness index. If it's neutral, it's 0. And if it's positive, it's 1. So it is factored into the model. And for us, there were some negative things, but not damaging about the quality, more about visiting them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Russ, do we have time for one more? Okay. My next question, as most of you know, I'm in the retail banking industry, so it's interesting and makes perfect sense in the type of environment that we heard here. I can easily see an application. In banking, it's not so much about selling units. While we do have sales and we do want to sell units, we're focused as much on behaviors of people that are already our current customers as repeat purchasing. So I'm curious about the applicability of the model, and maybe this is more for VK, to other industries, other retail industries, and you might use banking as an example, or talk about some others in general.
See, fortunately in Georgia, we have a lot of local banks, and so I'll just take a general case of how a bank can use it. So right now, so you had this debit card fees that there was an episode with Bank of America, and they charged $5, they withdrew. So it created a lot of backlash. No, I'm not bad-mouthing Bank of America, but I'm a customer of Bank of America. But what you can do is that the way this social media campaign will work is that it has to be a localized strategy. So you got to mobilize the local crowd. It's not a national campaign about. So you go and at the branch level, you engage the customers and find out who are all banking in a particular branch, like in where we live in our branch, and then find out among those people, like you have the customer database, you are the bank, you can find out who are all on the Facebook, and then mobilize them and ask them to tweet about, engage them in a campaign like this, saying that why is it good to go to this bank and this branch and bank. And that's the message. So I always tell people that the reason I go to Bank of America, this particular branch, is that one, I walk in, they call me by my name. But that is dangerous because not everybody's name is known to them, you know. So, but at the same time, if you generally focus on service quality, the new product mix, and the waiting time is much less, and plus they give you free food and then entertain you with a large TV there. So you don't miss out on anything else, and read newspaper too. So I'm just making it light, but it has to be a localized strategy. And anytime you introduce a new innovation, I find it that it's better to go at the local chain. We also helped a local retailer there in the spa, in terms of helping them how to mobilize this. All the customers of that we looked at, they're all on the Facebook. So posted a conversation about why they should go to the spa. It was liked by so many people and everybody started doing it. 33% increase in the spa attendance in a period of 3 months. So, but the question is, our contribution, marketing science contribution, comes in identifying with our drivers who should be the seed users, how much effect they'll generate, and how much value they can bring in as an incremental value. So by predicting this, you can preempt spa going like crazy about so many customers walking in, they can time it. So, and they can also open additional spas there. But I know it's a very involved study and there's a lot of information, but with the help of Gary's constructive feedback yesterday, I hope we did a decent job, Gary. Thank you so much for your help. Yeah.
Okay, one more question from my side. How can you actually separate out kind of the effect of online versus offline social media? I'm asking because I've been to India and I've run into a group of women from Gujarat, and they were talking and talking and nobody listening actually, but just talking. So there's a lot of offline word of mouth in India, obviously, and you observe kind of the complete effect of your kind of campaigns, but it actually also starts offline activities as well. So are you able actually to quantify offline word of mouth?
Well, that is why you have an incentivized referral system so that they talk and they get goodies. Some of the goodies in the Hokey Pokey context that we had, where like a picture with a celebrity. In fact, the Hokey Pokey itself was opened by a popular film director, film star, and also the crowd comes in like a mob. And also during the World Cup cricket and all, there are a lot of promotions and so on. So we account for that in the statistical model as to what was going on to tease out that effect. But it's tough to control offline unless, my prediction is 5 to 10 years from now, we'll have a chip inserted in our body, which will track whoever we speak to, what we speak to, and we'll take the chip, put it there, and we'll be able to track all the information. But we are not there right now.
And for us, the target audience was of an age group that is very involved and engaged in social media.
Oh, that is something that he mentioned, that 16 to 25 is the primary age group. They're all actively participating in Facebook and Twitter. And during the evenings, you said...
The families, we have a lot of family and groups attending there.
They come and families, so the kids come with the parents also, and then in talking about this. So, but again, this is our effort to quantify as a first major study in this area in terms of measuring and validating it. And thank you for allowing us to do this study with them. So this is just the beginning, but we are already on to 2-3 more retailers. Yeah.
Thank you.